Hey, it's Brock here from Rock Hill Farms, and today I want to do a head-to-head comparison between chainsaw chains that are professionally sharpened and chains that I sharpen myself by hand. And I think this is a really relevant comparison because if you're like me and you do a lot of cutting, that means you also need to do a lot of sharpening. And I don't mind doing it, but it is time consuming, and there's a place just down the road that will sharpen chains for $7. I can drop them off and they'll have it ready an hour later, or drop several off and get them the next day, or whatever the case is. And if they get them sharper than I do, that's an appealing option. So once the tractor's warmed up, I'm gonna go grab a log and we're gonna do a head-to-head comparison. Should be a lot of fun. There's no such thing as a perfectly controlled experiment, but I try to set the conditions up to be as fair as possible. And I do a lot of these chainsaw comparisons, normally between two different saws. And for those, I always used brand new chains. Today I've got two chains that I bought to compare my 500i to a 661 and a 462. The two chains we're using today were both bought brand new for that test. I've used them both twice. I used them on milling with the chainsaw, on the logo saw, and then I used them on cutting that big stump down. So these are not old chains that have been sharpened or mis-sharpened 100 times. They're almost new, but they were both dull yesterday. So this one was professionally sharpened for $7 just down the road. And what I'm gonna do now is take this log that has very little taper, and I'm gonna warm my saw up, let it warm up for about a minute so it's good and ready. Then I'm gonna make 3 consecutive cuts and see how long it takes to make those 3 cuts. Then I'll go sharpen the chain and do the exact same thing with the other chain. So that took 30 seconds for 3 cuts. That's 10 seconds per cut. Now, let's go up and sharpen this chain. One more note on the way I conduct these tests is that I am not trying to get this to cut as fast as possible. I'm putting almost no down pressure on the saw. I'm just letting it pull itself through. And the reason for that is it's not about how fast I can go. It's about recreating the test under the exact same conditions. I was planning to take this up and put the chainsaw in the vise in the shop, but I've got everything. I keep everything that I need to sharpen chains in the toolbox on the tractor. So we've got a stump vise and a hatchet to knock it in with. This little stump vise is $18. Can't beat that. I'll put the Amazon link if anyone's interested in getting a stump vise. Pretty good little value as a way to hold your saw still so you can sharpen out wherever you happen to be. Now the chainsaw is held still, I can go ahead and sharpen the chain. Now when I said I was going to hand sharpen this with a file, some people will see me use this tool and say I need to learn to hand sharpen chains. It's the same thing. Most people who use a single round file put it in some kind of a holder, but whether you do or you don't, this is just a holder for a round file and a holder for a flat file. The only difference between using this and using those two files separately is you only have to go around your chain one time. And this establishes a consistent height between your filing on your tooth and on your raker. Very simple, and it's really no different than any other way to hand file. Just in case I have trouble finding it on the way back around, I'll go ahead and put a mark right here to show which tooth I did first. Usually you can just spot it by the shiny spot on the raker. Even if it looks like it, I am not filing in both directions. File, lift up just slightly and pull it back without taking the file out of the tooth. If you're new to chain sharpening, the most simple tip I can give you that took me a little while to figure out is that you don't have to put very much pressure at all on the files for it to sharpen. Really just letting the file do the work. And you want to be as consistent as possible with the way you file. So that means the same amount of pressure and the same amount of strokes per tooth. I normally do about 5. With filming and everything, I probably had this off for about 30 minutes, so I will let it warm up just a little bit again before cutting. Alright, so I set this timer where I can see it. And as soon as it crosses 1 minute, I start the saw. And then I can still see it when I finish the cut. With the professionally sharpened chain, it took me 30 seconds. With the one I just hand sharpened, it took me 28 seconds. It's a marginal difference. The question is, does it matter? And even if we just say that's variation and they were equally sharp, which one makes more sense? And that's going to depend on you and your specific situation, but I can give a few thoughts on it. So, number one, about grinding a chain versus filing it. I know for a fact that when I file a chain, it doesn't get hot and in any way affect the steel, soften it, or remove more material than necessary. I think I'm removing exactly the minimum amount of material that you can remove and still get the chain sharp. So I think hand filing is the best way to sharpen. I own a chain grinder. It's the kind that's like a chop saw. You bring it down at the right angle and it just removes a little bit of material. Either that machine sucks or I suck at using it, because when I use that, if I get enough material to do the job, it removes too much material. And you can see where it's been too hot. Now, I've been told that I could get a better quality grinding wheel to put on that and get a better result, but I don't want to mess with that. I'm not going to grind my chains. I'm either going to file them or I'm going to pay someone to grind them. Now, whether those people are experts and they can grind it without heating it, I have no way to say that. And honestly, if I did, it doesn't matter, because what about the place that's next to your house? Are they good at it? So let's just assume that they're not damaging the chain, but it's something to think about. Now we're thinking it costs $7 to have that chain sharpened. And I've got a bunch of extras that I can drop off at my convenience when I'm already leaving and going that way. And it's really not costing me any time to just drop them off and pick them up. So $7 a chain. Say it takes me 15 minutes to sharpen a chain. then figure your time's worth something. It's about a break even. So I think everyone who cuts a lot of wood should know how to hand sharpen a chain, should keep the tools with them, because if you've only got one sharp chain and you hit some dirt or a rock, you need to be able to sharpen it right now to finish what you're doing. But I'm kind of leaning towards taking my big bucket of chains. I've probably got 50 chains because I have 6 different chainsaws, and each one, only 2 of them use the same chain. All the rest of them all use different chains. And I've got 4 or 5 chains for each one. So literally probably 20, 25 chains up there. I'm going to take them all, I think, and have them sharpened. You know, I say that, but what is 7 times 25? That'd be $175. But then I wouldn't have to sharpen a chain for a long time. So I'm going to give it some more thought. What do you guys think about hand sharpening your chains versus having them sharpened for... And what about $7? What do you guys pay near you? What are people charging to sharpen a chain? So I know it's not great that I didn't give some definitive answer, but all these things I think are conversations that have nuance, and it's an open discussion in my mind. I am glad to see that the way I've been sharpening a chain gets it at least as sharp as one of these ground chains, and it feels like it's as sharp as a new chain. So anyway, I appreciate you taking time to watch the video. I'll put links on the screen to a couple more of our videos, and I'll see you next time.